The crystal chalice slipped from Alexa's trembling fingers, red wine spreading across white marble like spilled blood. Every high fae in the ceremonial hall turned to stare, their immortal faces twisted with disgust. She dropped to her knees, her servant's rags soaking up the wine as she scrambled to clean the mess with her bare hands. But Lady Seraphine's cruel laugh cut through the stunned silence. "Clumsy mortal filth!" Seraphine hissed, her silver gown shimmering as she stepped back from the spreading stain. "This is why servants shouldn't be allowed near the bonding ceremony. You contaminate sacred ground with your presence." Alexa kept her eyes down, her dark hair falling forward to hide the heat burning her cheeks. 20 years she'd served in the Dawn Court's Crystal Palace. 20 years of keeping her head bowed and her true nature hidden. The other servants had warned her not to volunteer for tonight's ceremony, but she'd been desperate for the extra coin. Her younger brother needed medicine, and mortal herbs were expensive even in the Fae realm. "Leave the mess," a voice commanded from above, deep and resonant with power that made the air itself vibrate. "The ceremony begins now." Alexa's breath caught. She knew that voice. Everyone in the Dawn Court knew High Lord Jacob of the Starlight Court, though she'd only glimpsed him from distant corridors. He ruled the northern territories with absolute authority, a warrior prince who'd lived for over 1,000 years and had never taken a mate. Court gossips whispered he was waiting for someone worthy of his ancient bloodline, someone who could match his power. She risked a glance upward and immediately regretted it. Jacob stood at the center of the ceremonial circle, his tall frame radiating authority in midnight blue robes embroidered with silver constellations. His dark hair was pulled back from a face too beautiful to be mortal, all sharp angles and piercing gray eyes that seemed to see through flesh and bone to the soul beneath. Those eyes swept across the gathered nobles, then, impossibly, locked onto hers. The world stopped. Alexa felt something pull tight in her chest, like an invisible thread connecting her heart to his. Her skin prickled with sudden heat, and for one terrifying moment, she felt her carefully maintained glamour waver. No. She clenched her fists, forcing her power down, burying it deep where no one could sense it. She was mortal. She had to be mortal. The alternative was death. "Everyone take your positions," Jacob said, but his gaze hadn't left Alexa's face. "The moon rises. The bonds will reveal themselves." The high fae nobles arranged themselves in the ancient pattern, males on one side of the circle, females on the other. Alexa scrambled backward, desperate to escape to the servants' alcove, but Seraphine's hand clamped onto her shoulder, bruising force. "You stay right there," Seraphine whispered, her breath hot against Alexa's ear. "Let everyone see what happens when mortal trash intrudes on sacred rites. The magic will reject you, and Lord Jacob will have you exiled to the mortal realm where you belong." Terror flooded Alexa's veins. The bonding ceremony used ancient magic to reveal fated mates, to draw soul-bonded pairs together through power older than the courts themselves. If that magic touched her, if it sensed what she really was beneath the glamour she'd worn for 2 decades, they wouldn't just exile her. They'd execute her for the crime of hiding among them. High Elder Morrigan stepped into the circle's center, her white hair flowing like water down her back, her ageless face solemn. She raised both hands, and starlight began to gather between her palms, growing brighter and brighter until Alexa had to look away from the brilliance. "By the ancient laws, by the magic that binds our kind, Let the fated bonds be revealed, Morrigan intoned. Let soul call to soul. Let power recognize power. Let the worthy be claimed. The starlight exploded outward, washing over everyone in the hall. Alexa watched in horrified fascination as silver threads materialized in the air, connecting fated pairs. Lady Celestine gasped as a thread appeared between her and Lord Thaddeus, both of their eyes beginning to glow with shared power. Across the circle, 3 other pairs found their bonds manifesting, their magic intertwining in visible displays of light and color. But the brightest thread of all blazed directly from High Lord Jacob's chest to Alexa's. Impossible, Seraphine breathed, her grip on Alexa's shoulder loosening in stunned disbelief. The silver thread pulsed with power, thicker and more radiant than any of the others, and where it touched Alexa's chest, her glamour shattered like glass. She cried out as her true nature flooded to the surface, no longer able to contain it under the ceremony's ancient magic. Her skin began to glow with inner light, her eyes shifting from plain brown to luminous violet shot through with silver stars. Her ragged servant's clothes couldn't hide the sudden surge of power that made the air around her shimmer and crack. She's not mortal, someone whispered, the words spreading through the crowd like wildfire. She's been living among us in disguise. Jacob moved before anyone else could react, crossing the distance between them in 2 strides that defied natural speed. He stood between Alexa and the advancing court, his power flooding the hall with such intensity that several lesser fae stumbled backward. The silver thread between them blazed brighter, and Alexa felt something fundamental shift inside her chest, like a lock turning after centuries of being sealed shut. "She is mine," Jacob declared, his voice carrying the weight of absolute command. "The bond has spoken. Any who challenge this will answer to me." "She's been deceiving us for years!" Seraphine shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at Alexa. "She wore a glamour, hid her true nature. That's a crime, punishable by exile or death. The laws are clear, my lord. You cannot claim a criminal." Alexa's legs trembled so badly, she thought they might give out. Seraphine was right. She'd broken one of the oldest laws of the Dawn Court by living among them in disguise. She'd had no choice. Her mother had made her promise on her deathbed to hide what she was, to protect her brother who was even more powerless than the mortals believed Alexa to be. But the court wouldn't care about her reasons. They'd only see the deception. High Elder Morrigan stepped forward, her ancient eyes studying Alexa with unsettling intensity. The old fae's power pressed against Alexa's newly exposed aura, reading, testing, searching for the truth. "The girl's glamour was expertly crafted," Morrigan said slowly. "It would have taken immense power to maintain such a deception for so long. Tell me, child, what exactly are you hiding? Your aura tastes of starlight and something far older." Alexa's throat closed up. She couldn't speak, couldn't form words past the terror choking her. If she told them the truth, if she revealed her bloodline, her brother would be hunted down. He was the last male of their line, powerless and fragile, living in the mortal settlement at the border. She'd endured 20 years of servitude, of bowing and scraping and pretending to be less than nothing, all to keep him safe. Jacob's hand closed around her wrist, and the touch sent lightning through her veins. His power called to something deep inside her, something that had been sleeping for far too long. The silver thread between them pulsed in response, growing warmer, more substantial, until it felt like a physical chain binding them together. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. "I can feel your fear through the bond, but I won't let anyone harm you. Tell them the truth." "I can't," Alexa whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, my brother. They'll kill him if they know." Jacob's expression shifted, something fierce and possessive flashing across his features. His thumb traced a circle on her wrist, right over her pulse point, and Alexa felt her magic respond to his touch, rising up despite her attempts to control it. Stars began to materialize in the air around them, tiny pinpricks of light that danced and swirled like a miniature galaxy. "Everyone here will swear an oath of protection for her family," Jacob announced, his voice ringing with power that made the very stones of the palace tremble. "Or they will face me in single combat. Starting with you, Seraphine." Seraphine's face went white. Single combat with a High Lord was essentially a death sentence. No one in the Dawn Court could match Jacob's power, not even Lady Celestine, who commanded the summer storms. But Seraphine had always been ambitious, always scheming to elevate her own position, and Alexa saw the calculation in her eyes even through the fear. "The law states that any fae who deceives the court must face trial," Seraphine said, her voice steadier now as she addressed the watching crowd rather than Jacob directly. "If you truly believe she is your fated mate, Lord Jacob, then let her prove her worth. Let her survive the blood trial. If she is truly of high fae blood, if she truly deserves to stand as your equal, then the ancient magic will accept her. If not, the trial will reveal her as the fraud she is." Gasps rippled through the assembled nobles. The blood trial was an ancient rite, one that hadn't been used in centuries. It required the accused to walk through the Starfire Gate, a portal of pure magical flame that would burn away any deception, any false claim to power. Only those with true high fae bloodlines could survive it. Lesser fae were consumed in seconds. Mortals died instantly. "The blood trial is forbidden for bonded pairs," Morgan interjected sharply. "The pain of the trial would pass through their connection. Lord Jacob would suffer everything she endures." "Then let him prove his devotion," Seraphine replied, a cruel smile curving her lips. "If she truly is his fated mate, if their bond is genuine and not some trick of glamour or enchantment, he'll endure it gladly. But I think we'll discover that this mortal servant has somehow fooled even the ancient magic. Perhaps she carries a talisman, or perhaps she's been corrupted by dark magic. Either way, the Starfire Gate will expose the truth." Alexa felt ice spread through her chest. She knew what she was, knew her bloodline, was older and purer than any of these court nobles could imagine. But the blood trial didn't just test bloodlines. It tested worthiness. And she'd spent 20 years living as a servant, bowing and scraping, and allowing herself to be treated as less than nothing. What if the magic judged her unworthy? What if it found her wanting because she'd hidden, because she'd been too afraid to claim her birthright? Worse, what if Jacob suffered because of her? She could feel him now through the bond, could sense his absolute certainty, his unwavering conviction that she belonged to him. But she also felt something else. A bone-deep weariness, centuries of loneliness, an ache that had finally been soothed when their bond snapped into place. He'd waited so long for a mate. She couldn't let him be destroyed because of her cowardice. "I accept," Jacob said before Alexa could protest. "She will take the blood trial, and I will stand with her. But when she succeeds, Seraphine, you will be the one facing exile. I will personally escort you to the mortal realm and strip you of your immortality." The threat hung in the air like a drawn blade. Seraphine's smile faltered, but she'd gone too far to back down now. She inclined her head in mock agreement, though her eyes glittered with malice. "As you wish, my lord," she said. "I look forward to watching the truth be revealed." Morgan sighed deeply, her ancient face creasing with concern. But she couldn't refuse once the challenge had been issued and accepted. The blood trial was an old law, one that predated even the current court structure. If Jacob agreed to it, she had no choice but to proceed. "Very well," the High Elder said. "We will convene at the Starfire Gate at dawn. May the ancient powers show mercy on you both." The ceremony dissolved into chaos as nobles rushed to whisper among themselves, already placing bets on the outcome. Alexa stood frozen. In Jacob's shadow, the silver thread between them pulsing steadily, anchoring her to reality when everything else felt like a nightmare. She wanted to run, wanted to flee to her brother and take him far away where no one would ever find them. But Jacob's hand remained on her wrist, gentle but unbreakable, and she knew he wouldn't let her go. "Come with me," he murmured, guiding her away from the crowd. "We need to talk, privately." He led her through corridors she'd cleaned 1,000 times, but everything looked different now that she wasn't pretending to be mortal. Her enhanced face sight caught details she'd forced herself to ignore for years. The subtle flow of magic through the palace walls, the way certain stones glowed with trapped starlight, the wards and protections woven into every doorway. This place had never truly been her home, but she'd convinced herself she could belong here if she just made herself small enough, invisible enough. Jacob brought her to a tower chamber she'd never entered before, one reserved for visiting dignitaries. The room was circular, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the eternal twilight of the Dawn Court's borders. Stars glittered in the purple sky, and Alexa felt her magic reach toward them instinctively, drawn to their light. "You can let go now," Jacob said, closing the door behind them. "Your power wants to be free. I can feel how tightly you're holding it in. It must be painful." Alexa wrapped her arms around herself, trying to contain the magic that surged beneath her skin. It hurt. He was right about that. Maintaining the glamour for 20 years had been difficult, but holding back her true power now that the glamour had shattered was agony. It was like trying to stop a flood with her bare hands. "If I let go, they'll know," she whispered. "They'll know what I am, and they'll hunt my brother. He's all I have left." "Then tell me what you are," Jacob said, moving closer. "Because I've lived for over 1,000 years, and I've never felt power like yours. The bond doesn't lie. You're not just High Fae. You're something more." She met his eyes, those storm-gray depths that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed lies. The bond hummed between them, warm and insistent, urging her to trust him. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Trust had gotten her mother killed. "My mother was of the celestial bloodline," Alexa said finally, the words tasting like ash on her tongue. "The line that was supposed to have died out 300 years ago, when the Shadow Court massacred them. But she survived. She hid, just like I've been hiding. And when she finally felt safe enough to have children, when she thought enough time had passed, they found her anyway." Jacob's expression shifted to something dangerous, his power flaring hot, enough that Alexa felt it against her skin. The celestial bloodline. Every Fae knew the stories. An ancient line of star-born Fae who could manipulate the night sky itself, who could call down meteors and bend space and time. They'd been so powerful that 3 courts had united to destroy them, fearing they'd overthrow the established order. You're celestial, he breathed. That's why your magic tastes like starlight. That's why the bond is so strong. Celestials and Starlight Court Fae are complementary bloodlines. We're meant to balance each other. I'm a servant, Alexa corrected, though the words felt hollow now. I'm nothing. That's what I've had to be to survive. My brother doesn't even have magic. He's completely mortal. If anyone discovers what our mother was, they'll kill him just to make sure the bloodline truly ends. No one will touch your brother, Jacob said with absolute certainty. He's under my protection now, under the protection of the Starlight Court. I'll send warriors tonight to bring him here safely. You can't! Alexa gasped, grabbing his arm without thinking. The Dawn Court will see it as an act of aggression. You bringing my brother here, claiming me. They'll think you're trying to resurrect the celestial line, trying to gain power over them. Jacob's hand covered hers, his touch sending warmth flooding through the bond. She could feel him now, really feel him, his determination, his protectiveness, and underneath it all, a deep well of loneliness that mirrored her own. He'd been alone for centuries, powerful and untouchable, and now that he'd found his mate, nothing would make him let her go. I don't care what they think, he said quietly. I've spent 1,000 years without you. I've fought in wars, built kingdoms, watched generations of mortals and lesser fae live and die. I've had everything except the one thing that matters. And now that I've found you, now that the bond has finally appeared, I won't let anyone take you from me. Not the Dawn Court, not Seraphine, not your own fear. Tears burned in Alexa's eyes, but she blinked them back furiously. She couldn't afford to be weak, not now. Tomorrow she'd have to walk through the Starfire Gate, and if she faltered even for a moment, the flames would consume her. Worse, they'd consume Jacob too through the bond. She couldn't let that happen. Whatever else she was, coward, liar, pretender, she wouldn't let him die because of her. Then we need to prepare, she said, straightening her spine. The blood trial tests more than just bloodline. It tests worthiness, courage, strength of will. I need to remember what my mother taught me before she died. I need to stop being a servant and remember what it means to be celestial. Jacob's smile was like the sun breaking through storm clouds, transforming his severe features into something breathtaking. He cupped her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. There she is, he murmured. There's my mate, my equal, my queen. The title sent a shock through Alexa's system. Queen. Not servant, not mortal. Queen of the Starlight Court, standing beside a high lord who'd waited a millennium for her. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was everything she'd never let herself dream about. I don't know how to be a queen, she admitted. I've spent 20 years scrubbing floors and fetching wine. I don't know anything about ruling or court politics or... You know how to survive, Jacob interrupted. You kept yourself and your brother alive for 2 decades while hiding in plain sight from some of the most powerful fae in existence. You maintained a glamour that would have broken most high fae after a few months. You endured humiliation and servitude without letting it destroy your spirit. If that's not strength worthy of a queen, I don't know what is. His words settled something inside her, smoothing out the jagged edges of panic. He was right. She'd survived. Against impossible odds, she'd protected her brother and kept her secrets. That took a different kind of strength than ruling courts or commanding armies, but it was strength nonetheless. Thank you, she whispered. I felt you, through the bond, your loneliness. I didn't know it was possible to feel so alone while surrounded by so many people. It's the curse of power, Jacob said, his voice rough with emotion. The more powerful you are, the more isolated you become. No one sees you as a person anymore. You're just a force to be feared or used. I stopped hoping for a mate centuries ago. Stopped believing the bond would ever appear. I'm sorry you had to wait so long, Alexa said, meaning it. I'm not, he replied immediately, because you're worth every century of loneliness. You're worth everything. The bond flared between them, so bright and hot that Alexa gasped. She could feel his certainty, his absolute conviction, and it terrified her as much as it thrilled her. No one had ever believed in her like this. No one had ever looked at her and seen anything except a servant to be ordered around. A sharp knock interrupted the moment. Jacob growled low in his throat, a distinctly inhuman sound that reminded Alexa he was ancient and powerful and very, very dangerous to those who crossed him. But he moved to answer the door, positioning himself between Alexa and whoever stood outside. High Elder Morrigan swept into the room, her white robes trailing behind her, her ageless face grave. She took in the scene, Jacob's protective stance, Alexa's glowing eyes, the silver thread connecting them that was visible even without the ceremony's magic, and sighed deeply. The Dawn Court is in an uproar, Morrigan said without preamble. Seraphine has been spreading rumors that you use dark magic to create a false bond, that you're trying to infiltrate the courts and resurrect the celestial line to take revenge for the massacre. Half the nobles are calling for your immediate execution, Lord Jacob. The other half are placing bets on whether you'll both survive until dawn. Let them talk, Alexa said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. I'm done hiding. I'm done letting people like Seraphine decide my worth. Morrigan's ancient eyes studied her with new appreciation, and Alexa felt the weight of that gaze, the centuries of knowledge and power behind it. The High Elder had presided over the Dawn Court since before most of the current nobles were born. If anyone understood the danger they faced, it was her. Good, Morrigan said simply, because the blood trial will require every ounce of that defiance. The Starfire Gate doesn't just test your blood mine, child. It tests your soul. It will show you your deepest fears, your greatest shames, and demand that you face them. And through the bond, Lord Jacob will experience all of it with you. Jacob stepped closer to Alexa, his hand finding hers and threading their fingers together. The touch sent warmth flooding through their connection, steadying her racing heart. I'm not afraid, he said. Let the gate show me her fears. Let it test both of us. We'll emerge stronger. Perhaps, Morrigan mused. But you should know what Seraphine is planning. She's petitioned Lady Celestine to have the trial overseen by a neutral party from another court. The Shadow Court has agreed to send an observer. Alexa's blood turned to ice. The Shadow Court. The same court that had led the massacre against her mother's people 3 centuries ago. They'd send someone who would be predisposed to believe she was dangerous, someone who'd want to see her fail. When was this decided? Jacob demanded. The Shadow Court has no authority here. They do if Lady Celestine agrees to it, Morrigan replied. And she has. She's afraid of your growing power, Jacob. You control the Northern Territories. You have the strongest warrior force in any court. And now you've bonded with a celestial bloodline heir. From her perspective, you're a threat. This is madness, Alexa said, pulling her hand free from Jacob's to pace the room. I don't want power. I don't want to threaten anyone. I just want my brother to be safe. What you want and what you are two different things, Morrigan said gently. You are celestial. That means you are powerful whether you want to be or not. The question is, what you'll do with that power. Will you let fear control you, or will you claim what's rightfully yours? The words hung in the air, heavy with significance. Alexa stopped pacing, turned to face the ancient High Elder, and felt something shift inside her chest. Morrigan was right. She'd been running for 20 years, hiding and pretending and making herself small. But the truth had caught up with her anyway. The bond had revealed what she was, and now she had a choice. Keep running, or finally stand and fight. I'll face the trial, Alexa said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. And when I survive it, when I prove I'm worthy to stand beside Jacob, I want Seraphine exiled, just like he promised. I want everyone who's whispered that I'm lesser than them to see exactly what I am. Morrigan's smile was small but genuine. She reached out and placed a cool hand on Alexa's forehead, and power flooded through the touch, ancient, testing, measuring. Your mother would be proud, the High Elder said softly. Rest now, both of you. You'll need your strength for what comes at dawn. She left as silently as she'd arrived, closing the door behind her. Alexa sagged against the windowsill, exhaustion hitting her all at once. The adrenaline that had kept her going was fading, leaving behind bone-deep weariness and the overwhelming reality of what she'd agreed to face. Jacob crossed to her immediately, wrapping his arms around her from behind and pulling her back against his chest. She should have protested. They barely knew each other. The bond was new and strange. But instead, she melted into his embrace, letting his strength support her. Sleep, he murmured against her hair. I'll keep watch. Nothing will harm you tonight. The trial, Alexa started. We'll wait until dawn, Jacob interrupted. For now, let me hold you. Let me feel you here, alive and safe. That's all that matters. Alexa closed her eyes, letting herself have this moment of peace before the storm. Through the bond, she could feel Jacob's steady presence, his unwavering certainty that they'd face whatever came together. For the first time in 20 years, she wasn't alone. For the first time in her life, someone saw her, really saw her, and didn't look away. Dawn came too quickly. Alexa woke to find herself curled in a chair by the window, wrapped in Jacob's cloak while he stood sentinel nearby. He hadn't slept at all, she realized. He'd spent the entire night watching over her, his power extending outward in protective waves that kept any potential threats at bay. It's time, she said, rising to her feet. Jacob turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. The silver thread between them pulsed steadily, a physical manifestation of their bond that grew stronger with each passing hour. Remember, he said, crossing to take her hands in his. The Starfire Gate will try to break you by showing you your worst fears. Don't fight it. Face it head on. And know that I'll be there with you every step of the way. What if I'm not strong enough? Alexa asked. What if the gate judges me unworthy? Then we fail together, Jacob replied simply. But I don't believe that will happen. You've already proven your worth to me. Now prove it to yourself. They walked through the palace corridors hand in hand, and Alexa noted with grim satisfaction that servants and nobles alike pressed themselves against the walls to let them pass. No one met her eyes now. No one dared. The girl they'd dismissed as mortal servant filth was revealed as something far more dangerous, and they didn't know how to reconcile the person they'd known with the power that now radiated from her. The Starfire Gate stood in the deepest courtyard of the Dawn Court Palace, a towering archway of crystallized flame that had stood for millennia. Alexa had seen it before from a distance, but she'd never been this close. The heat rolling off it was intense, and she could feel the ancient magic contained within, old and wild and utterly merciless. The courtyard was packed with fae from multiple courts, Dawn Court nobles in their shimmering finery, Starlight Court warriors in midnight armor, and standing separate from everyone else, a tall figure cloaked in shadows, the Shadow Court Observer. Even without seeing his face, Alexa could feel the menace radiating from him, the barely contained hostility. Seraphine stood near the gate, her expression smug despite the tension crackling through the air. Lady Celestine sat on an elevated platform, her summer storm power making the air itself shimmer with heat. And High Elder Morrigan presided over it all from the center, her white robes glowing with contained power. Lord Jacob of the Starlight Court, and Alexa of the Celestial Bloodline, Morrigan intoned, her voice carrying to every corner of the courtyard. You have requested trial by Starfire to prove the legitimacy of your bond and the worthiness of your union. Do you both willingly accept the terms and consequences of this trial? I do, Jacob said, his voice ringing with power. I do, Alexa echoed, surprised at how steady her voice sounded. Then approach the gate, Morrigan commanded. Know that the fire will burn away all deception, all false claims, all unworthy intentions. Only truth can survive the flames. Jacob's hand tightened around Alexa's as they walked toward the gate together. The flames grew brighter as they approached, dancing and writhing as if alive. Alexa could feel the heat now, could smell something like burning starlight and ancient oaths. Through the bond, she felt Jacob's absolute calm, his unshakable confidence, and she drew strength from it. They stopped at the threshold. The flames towered above them, so bright Alexa had to squint against the glare. She could hear her heartbeat thundering in her ears, could feel her magic responding to the gate's call, rising up to meet the challenge. Together, Jacob murmured. No matter what we see, no matter what the flames show us, we face it together. Together, Alexa agreed. They stepped through the gate as one. The world exploded into white-hot agony. Flames consumed them, burned through skin and bone and soul, and Alexa screamed as every nerve in her body ignited. Through the bond, she felt Jacob's pain mirroring hers, felt him experiencing everything she endured. But he didn't let go of her hand. Even as they burned, even as the flames tried to tear them apart, they held on. Then the physical pain faded, replaced by something worse. Visions flooded Alexa's mind, each one more horrible than the last. She saw her mother's death, watched the Shadow Court warriors cut her down while young Alexa hid in a cupboard, too afraid to try to help. She saw her brother's future, sick, dying, calling for her while she stood frozen, unable to save him. She saw herself, wearing a crown that was too heavy, making decisions that cost innocent lives, becoming the very thing she feared, powerful and cold and alone. No, she gasped. This isn't real. These are just fears. Don't let it break you, Jacob's voice cut through the visions. See them for what they are, possibilities, not certainties. You have the power to choose differently. The flames showed her more. Jacob dead. Killed because he'd bonded with her. Courts burning because of her bloodline. Seraphine laughing as Alexa's brother was dragged away to execution. Every fear she'd buried for 20 years rose up to consume her, demanding she acknowledge them, demanding she face them. And then, in the depths of the fire, Alexa understood. The trial wasn't about having no fear. It was about having the courage to face those fears and move forward anyway. Her mother had been brave, yes, but she'd also been so afraid for her children that she'd taught them to hide, to be less than they were. Alexa had inherited that fear along with her power, but she didn't have to keep it. "I see you!" Alexa called out to the flames, to the ancient magic testing her. "I see my fears, and I acknowledge them, but I'm stronger than they are. I'm celestial. I survived when my entire line was massacred. I protected my brother when I was barely more than a child myself. I endured 20 years of servitude without losing who I am, and I will not let fear control me anymore." The flames roared higher, pressing closer, but Alexa stood her ground. Power flooded through her, not just her own celestial magic, but something more. The bond with Jacob, amplifying and strengthening her own abilities. Stars materialized in the fire, cool and bright, pushing back against the heat. She was starborn. She was ancient power made flesh. And she was done apologizing for existing. "That's it," Jacob said, his voice stronger now. "Let them see what you truly are." The stars exploded outward, filling the gate with light that rivaled the flames. Alexa felt her power fully awaken for the first time in her life, felt it surge through her veins like liquid silver. She was burning, yes, but she was also transcending, becoming something more than she'd been when she entered the gate. The vision shifted. Now she saw different possibilities. Her brother safe and happy, living a full mortal life under her protection. She saw herself standing beside Jacob, not as a frightened servant, but as an equal partner, a queen who ruled with wisdom and strength. She saw courts that feared her, yes, but also respected her, that understood her power was not a threat, but a balance. She saw futures where she chose courage over fear, action over hiding. These visions were just as uncertain as the fearful ones, but they held hope instead of despair. They showed her that the future wasn't written yet, that she had the power to shape it through her choices. The flames began to recede. Alexa felt them withdrawing, felt the ancient magic's approval washing over her like a benediction. She'd passed. They'd both passed. The starfire gate had tested them and found them worthy. They stumbled out of the gate together, still holding hands, their skin glowing with residual starfire. The courtyard erupted in shocked gasps and whispers. Alexa looked down at herself and saw that her servant's rags had been burned away, replaced by a gown that seemed woven from starlight itself, shimmering silver and deep blue that matched Jacob's robes perfectly. Her hair flowed loose down her back, no longer the dull brown of her glamour but midnight black, shot through with silver strands that caught the light. But the most dramatic change was the mark on her skin. A silver constellation bloomed across her left shoulder and down her arm, glowing softly with inner light, the physical manifestation of her bond with Jacob. She looked at him and saw an identical mark mirrored on his right arm, their constellations matching perfectly, two halves of a whole. High Elder Morrigan approached them, her ancient face transformed by a genuine smile. She raised her arms and power flooded the courtyard, making every fae present feel the weight of this moment. "The Starfire Gate has spoken," Morrigan declared, her voice ringing with authority. "The bond is true. The bloodline is proven. Alexa of the Celestial Line is worthy to stand as mate to High Lord Jacob of the Starlight Court." The Shadow Court observer stepped forward, pushing back his hood to reveal a severe face marked with ritual scars. His dark eyes studied Alexa with intense scrutiny, and she met his gaze unflinchingly, no longer afraid of what he might see. "The Shadow Court acknowledges the trial's verdict," he said, each word clearly costing him. "Though we will be watching to ensure the celestial bloodline does not seek revenge for past grievances. The only revenge that matters is mine," Jacob said softly, but his words carried to every corner of the courtyard. "Against anyone who threatens my mate or her family. Seraphine, step forward." The courtyard went deathly silent. Seraphine's face had gone ashen. All her smugness evaporated. She'd gambled that the trial would fail, that Alexa would be proven false or unworthy. Instead, she'd only succeeded in elevating her enemy to a position of unassailable power. "My lord, I was only trying to protect the court," Seraphine stammered, backing away. "Surely you can see I meant no true harm." "You called my mate a fraud," Jacob interrupted, his power filling the space until even the strongest nobles felt compelled to lower their eyes. "You demanded a trial that could have killed us both. You spread lies and rumors designed to turn the courts against us. Your actions were not protection. They were malice. And the price for that malice is exile." "You can't exile me!" Seraphine shrieked, her composure finally shattering completely. "I'm a high noble of the Dawn Court! Lady Celestine, please, you must stop this!" Lady Celestine rose from her throne, her summer storm power crackling in the air around her. For a long moment, she studied Seraphine, then Alexa, then Jacob. When she spoke, her voice was thoughtful rather than angry. "You brought this on yourself, Seraphine," Celestine said. "You invoked ancient law when you demanded the blood trial. By that same law, Lord Jacob has the right to exact payment for your accusations. I cannot and will not interfere." Jacob raised one hand, and shadows coalesced into physical chains that wrapped around Seraphine's wrists and ankles. She struggled against them, her magic flaring uselessly against the ancient power of the Starlight Court's High Lord. "You will be escorted to the border between the Fae and mortal realms," Jacob declared. "Your immortality will be stripped. You will live out whatever days remain to you as a mortal, with no magic and no status. Perhaps that will teach you the value of humility." Starlight Court warriors materialized from the shadows, taking hold of Seraphine's chains. She screamed and cursed as they dragged her away, but no one moved to help her. She'd played a dangerous game and lost, and every fae present understood that her fate could easily be theirs if they moved against the newly bonded pair. Morrigan gestured for silence, and the courtyard stilled once more. The ancient High Elder looked between Alexa and Jacob, then at the assembled courts, and Alexa could see the calculation in those ageless eyes. This was a political moment as much as a personal one. How Morrigan handled this would set the tone for how all the courts would treat them going forward. "By right of bond and blood, by the verdict of the Starfire Gate, I declare Alexa of the Celestial Line to be High Lady of the Starlight Court," Morgan announced. Let all courts recognize her claim. Let all Fae acknowledge her power. And let any who would move against her know they move against the Starlight Court itself. The declaration hung in the air like a bell's toll. High Lady. Not consort, not mate, but High Lady. Equal in rank to Jacob, co-ruler of the Starlight Court. Alexa felt the weight of that title settle onto her shoulders like a physical thing, heavy with responsibility and power both. Jacob turned to her, his gray eyes blazing with pride and something deeper, more primal. In front of everyone, he dropped to one knee before her, taking her hand and pressing it to his heart. My mate, he said, his voice carrying clearly despite its softness. My equal, my queen. I have waited 1,000 years for you, and I would wait 1,000 more. You are the stars I navigate by, the power that balances mine, the soul that calls to mine across all distance and time. Tears pricked Alexa's eyes as she felt his absolute sincerity through their bond. This wasn't performance for the watching courts. This was truth, raw and unfiltered, given freely in front of everyone. And you are the reason I finally stopped running, Alexa replied, her voice wavering but strong. The reason I found the courage to claim what was mine. I was nobody for so long that I forgot I could be somebody. But you saw me when I was invisible. You claimed me when I was wearing rags. You stood with me through fire. How could I not give you my whole heart? The bond between them blazed so brightly that every Fae in the courtyard could see it. The silver thread thick as a cord, pulsing with shared power. Jacob rose to his feet and pulled her into his arms, and when he kissed her, the stars overhead seemed to burn brighter in response. The assembled courts erupted into applause, some genuine, some reluctant, but all acknowledging what they'd witnessed. A bonding ceremony more powerful than any in living memory. A bloodline restored that everyone had believed was extinct. A servant girl revealed as ancient royalty. It was the kind of story that would be told for centuries to come. When they finally broke apart, Jacob's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. He kept one arm around Alexa's waist, holding her close, and addressed the watching Fae with the absolute authority of someone who'd ruled for a millennium. The Starlight Court extends an invitation to all courts for a formal celebration in 3 days' time, he announced. Come witness the coronation of my High Lady. Come celebrate the renewal of the celestial bloodline. Come in peace and friendship, and we will show you the same. Lady Celestine inclined her head in acceptance, and one by one, the other noble representatives did the same. Even the Shadow Court observer gave a grudging nod before vanishing back into his shadows. The political maneuvering would come later. Disputes over territory, debates about power balance, negotiations about alliances. But for now, there was only acknowledgement of what had transpired. As the courtyard began to empty, Morgan approached them one last time. Her ancient eyes were warm with something that might have been approval, or might have been relief. Your brother arrived safely at the Starlight Court Palace an hour ago, she said quietly. Lord Jacob's warriors retrieved him from the border settlement without incident. He's unharmed and waiting for you. Alexa's knees nearly gave, out with relief. Her brother. Safe. Everything she'd endured, every year of servitude and hiding, had been to protect him. And now, he was finally, truly safe, under the protection of the most powerful court in the realm. Thank you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for everything. For presiding fairly over the trial, for seeing the truth when it was finally revealed," Morgan interrupted softly. "I have lived a very long time, child. Long enough to recognize when someone is hiding not from malice, but from necessity. Your mother would be proud of how you've protected your brother. But she would also be proud that you finally claimed your birthright." The ancient High Elder swept away, leaving Alexa and Jacob alone in the emptying courtyard. The Starfire Gate had returned to its dormant state, flames banked, but not extinguished, waiting for the next soul brave enough, or desperate enough, to face its trial. "I can't believe that's over," Alexa said, sagging against Jacob's solid strength. "Yesterday I was a servant. Today I'm a high lady. My head is spinning." "Today you're my mate," Jacob corrected, pressing a kiss to her temple. "High lady is just a title. What matters is that you're here, you're safe, and we have eternity to figure out the rest together." "Eternity?" Alexa questioned. "I'm only 23. I know I have celestial blood, but I don't know if I'm truly immortal like you." Jacob's expression shifted to something possessive and pleased. He guided her hand to his chest, right over his heart, and she felt the steady beat of it through the bond. "The bond makes you immortal," he explained. "Your life is tied to mine now. As long as I live, you live, and I have no intention of dying anytime soon." The reality of that settled over Alexa like a warm blanket. Eternity. She would have eternity with this male who'd claimed her, protected her, and seen her worth when she'd been too afraid to see it herself. Her brother would live out a mortal lifespan, yes, but she could ensure he was happy, safe, cared for. And then, when he was gone, she would still have Jacob and the family they would build together. "Eternity sounds perfect," she murmured, "as long as I spend it with you." They left the Dawn Court that evening, traveling through portal magic directly to the Starlight Court Palace. Alexa had never been to the Northern Territories, had only heard stories of the eternal twilight that bathed Jacob's lands in perpetual starlight. When they stepped through the portal, she gasped at the beauty of it. The palace was carved from midnight blue stone that seemed to absorb and reflect starlight simultaneously. Towers reached toward a sky filled with more stars than she'd ever seen, constellations visible even in daylight. Gardens, filled with luminescent flowers, surrounded the palace, and in the distance, she could see the snow-capped peaks of the northern mountains. But the most beautiful sight was her brother rushing toward her across the palace courtyard, his mortal features twisted with relief and worry. "Lexi!" he shouted, using the childhood nickname only he was allowed. "They told me what happened. The trial, the fire. I was so afraid." "I'm fine, Thomas," Alexa said, catching him in a fierce hug. "I'm more than fine. I'm safe now. We're both safe." Thomas pulled back to study her, taking in her transformed appearance, the starlight gown, the glowing constellation mark on her arm, the power that radiated from her. His eyes widened with wonder and a hint of fear. "You're so different," he whispered. "You're like the stories Mother used to tell, like a true celestial." "I'm still your sister," Alexa assured him. "That will never change. I'm just more now. More than I was allowed to be before." Jacob approached them, and Thomas immediately straightened, clearly uncertain how to address a High Lord. But Jacob simply offered his hand in the mortal custom, his expression open and friendly. "Your sister has told me much about you," Jacob said. "Everything she endured, She endured to keep you safe. You should be very proud of her." "I am," Thomas said, shaking Jacob's hand. "And thank you, my lord, for protecting us both." "Your family now," Jacob replied simply. "The Starlight Court is your home for as long as you wish to stay. You'll want for nothing, and no one will ever threaten you again." They spent the evening in Jacob's private chambers, the three of them talking late into the night. Thomas had 1,000 questions about what had happened, about the trial and the bond, and what it all meant. Alexa answered as best she could, but there was so much she didn't understand yet herself. When Thomas finally retired to his own rooms, lavish quarters that made his modest border cottage look like a hovel, Alexa found herself alone with Jacob for the first time since the trial. The bond hummed between them, comfortable now, like a constant presence in the back of her mind that assured her he was near. He was safe. He was hers. "I don't know what happens now," Alexa admitted, standing at the window of Jacob's tower bedroom and looking out at the star-filled sky. "I know I'm supposed to be a high lady, supposed to rule beside you, but I don't know the first thing about politics or diplomacy or—" "You'll learn," Jacob said, coming to stand behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "We have centuries for you to learn, and you have me to guide you. I won't let you fail." "What if the other courts don't accept me?" Alexa asked. "What if they only see me as a servant pretending to be their equal?" "Then they'll learn differently," Jacob replied, his voice hardening. "You walked through the Starfire Gate and emerged victorious. You survived 20 years of hiding without losing yourself. You're celestial, one of the most powerful bloodlines ever to exist. Anyone who dismisses you does so at their own peril." Alexa turned in his arms to face him, tilting her head back to meet his storm-gray eyes. The bond pulsed between them, warm and steady, and through it, she felt his absolute certainty, his unwavering belief in her. "How do you have so much faith in me?" she whispered. "You barely know me." "I know your soul," Jacob replied, cupping her face in his hands. "The bond doesn't just connect our magic. It connects everything we are. I feel your courage, your fierce protectiveness for those you love, your determination to survive against impossible odds. I feel your kindness that endured even when others treated you as less than nothing. That's who you are, Alexa. That's the woman I waited 1,000 years to find." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but they were happy tears this time. No more hiding, no more pretending. She could finally be herself, all of herself, without fear. "I feel you too," she admitted. "Your loneliness, yes, but also your honor, your unwavering sense of justice, your devotion to those under your protection. You're not just powerful, Jacob. You're good, and that matters more than anything else." He kissed her then, slow and deep, and the bond flared between them like a supernova. Stars materialized in the air around them, drawn by their combined power, and Alexa felt her magic intertwining with his, two complementary forces becoming something greater together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jacob rested his forehead against hers. "My mate," he murmured. "My queen. My everything." "Yours," Alexa agreed simply. "Now and always." Outside the window, the stars burned brighter, as if the universe itself was celebrating their union. Somewhere in the Dawn Court, Seraphine was beginning her exile, stripped of power and status. Somewhere in the Shadow Court, observers were reporting on the return of the celestial bloodline and trying to determine if it posed a threat. But here, in the Starlight Court, in the arms of a High Lord who'd waited centuries for her, Alexa felt only peace. She'd started the day as a servant in rags, scorned and dismissed by everyone around her. She'd walked through fire, faced her deepest fears, and emerged transformed. She was High Lady now. She was celestial. She was bonded to the most powerful male in the Northern Territories. But most importantly, she was finally, truly free to be exactly who she'd always been meant to be. And that was worth everything she'd endured to get here. The coronation 3 days later was a spectacle of magic and power that drew representatives from every court. Alexa stood before thousands of fae, wearing a crown of starlight that Jacob placed on her head himself, and felt the weight of her new role settle onto her shoulders. But this time, the weight didn't crush her, because she didn't carry it alone. Jacob stood beside her, his hand in hers, their bond visible to everyone as proof of their union. And when she spoke her vows, to protect the Starlight Court, to rule with wisdom and strength, to honor the ancient magic that flowed through her veins, her voice rang out clear and strong. She was no longer the frightened servant girl hiding in the shadows. She was Alexa, High Lady of the Starlight Court, last daughter of the celestial bloodline, fated mate to a High Lord who'd waited a millennium for her. She was home. She was powerful. She was claimed. And she was exactly where she belonged. What do you think about the story? Let me know your comments. I would appreciate each of your thoughts. Also, comment which state you're watching from so I can give you a shout out on the next videos. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated on our next uploads. Thanks for watching!